There was once a city. The city was called Constantinople. This city existed around 1453. And this city is where today we have modern day Istanbul in Turkey. Now, this city experienced a siege sometime in 1453. Now, when this siege happened, when a siege happens, when you have all these medieval cities, the way they are built, you have, you must have seen them in movies. They are built like fortresses. So you have a gate, you have very high walls, you have a way of keeping intruders out of the city. Now, this very great city in 1453, it was attacked. It was attacked by a couple of people we know to be called the Ottoman Empire. These were people who were a particular of the Ottoman dynasty, and they were trying to spread the reach of their kingdom. So they came by sea, and then they came to this city called Constantinople. And they came to this city, and they came with soldiers, and they tried to fight against this city. Now, when they tried to fight against this city, interesting part of this story is that the warriors in this city had a secret weapon, not really secret, a weapon that they used, and the weapon was called the Greek fire. And now this Greek fire is a kind of weapon that burns, it causes a fire. And the interesting thing about this fire is that this fire is able to burn on land, is able to burn on water. Now, when these people came to fight this particular city, they tried with their soldiers to enter into the city. They tried to send in spies into the city, but the warriors in the city, they stood firm. And and even when they came with their ships, the warriors in this city were able to use this Greek fire, to fight against these intruders. And this fire, the way, if you watch the movies, the way this fire works is that it's being shot out through either hoses or through pipes. It is being shot out from within the city into outside. Now, this is reminiscent or looks like a concept in science, and is the concept of inflammation. So what is inflammation? Inflammation is a process where we refer to inflammation as the classic response of the body to injury, diseases, and infection. So whenever we have injuries or diseases or infection or intruders trying to find their way into the body, the response that the body has to the presence of these intruders is what we call an inflammatory response or an inflammatory reaction. And now this inflammatory reaction could be two. And just as fire, there has been sayings that fires are good. A fire is good, it can warm you, it can cook your food, but if it becomes uncontrolled, it can become disastrous. So that's how the inflammation reaction is. So you have what you call acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. Now, acute inflammation is inflammatory response that is not sustained, is not for long, and it is there to try to solve a particular problem. But if it becomes chronic in nature, it becomes problematic. It can lead to other kind of disease. So if you have inflammation that is sustained for days, for weeks, for months, then it can become very dangerous, because it can begin to cause other problems for the human body. Now, even as we discuss about inflammation, we like to talk about what are the cardinal points of inflammation. Inflammation has about 5 cardinal points, points that you use to recognize. When we say cardinal points, we're saying what are the things that we use to recognize, what are the signs or symptoms that we use to recognize that yes, an inflammation reaction is currently taking place. Before we go to that, it might also be important to say that the inflammation reaction is a part of the innate immune system. So it's part of the first line of defense against pathogens. So if you have pathogens finding their way into the body, part of the first line of defense against them is the inflammation reaction. Now, there are about 5 cardinal points of inflammation, and these were designed or identified by a physiologist called Celsius, another one called Rudolf Virchow. So they were the ones that designed these 5 cardinal points, and let's go through them very quickly. The first cardinal point is redness or rubor, and this is what we see whenever you have an injury or a wound or any break in skin integrity. You see redness around the area, And this redness is as a result of the fact that the blood vessels carrying blood to that area become dilated, meaning they become expanded and they allow more flow of blood to that area, and so the area looks red, and that's what we refer to as rubor or redness. And this occurs because the body is trying to fight against possible intruders that have found their way into the body through that place. Now, the second cardinal point is swelling or tumor. So when you have redness, you also have swelling or tumor, and this occurs because, first of all, there is vasodilation, so the blood vessels have increased in their diameter, and there is a higher flow of blood to that area. And not only do you have a higher flow of blood to that area, this higher flow of blood to that area now begins to put pressure, on all the tissues and organs in that surrounding area. So there's also a buildup of fluid in that area, and this buildup of fluid is what we refer to as edema. So you have this swelling in this area. You also have an increase in the permeability of the blood vessels. Remember that the blood vessels is carrying blood. Remember that blood has a lot of constituents. You have white blood cells, you have red blood cells, and you need an increase in permeability so that the cells of the blood, whether white blood cells or red blood cells, can drain through the vessels and then go to these areas where you have the inflammation, where you have the problem, whether it's a disease or inflammation, or an injury or a wound or a swelling, whatever it is. These cells can find their way to that area and help out. The next thing that you notice is what we call calor or heat. So normally, because you have an increased flow of blood to an area, and remember that part of the functions of the blood is to carry heat through the body. So with an increase in the availability of blood or the pumping of blood to this particular site, you also have an increase in temperature to that side, which can be felt if even barely by putting the palm or the back of the hand over that area, the area feels warm. So this is also seen. We also experience or see what we refer to as dolor or pain. So usually when you have the buildup of fluid in an inflamed area, this begins to put pressure on pain receptors in the area. We call them nociceptors. So there is pressure on these receptors, and this goes as a feedback to the brain, gives information to the brain that there is pain in this area. So the swelling in this area causes, pressure on the pain receptors, and this is sent back to the brain as information of pain. Also, you have some chemicals that are released with as a response of the body to this inflammation. Some of these chemicals include your prostaglandins and your bradykinins. These chemicals also, have a way of affecting these pain receptors and triggering these pain receptors such that information is sent to the brain and the person feels the pain in that area. The last cardinal point which we have for inflammation is the loss of function. Many a times when an area of the body is inflamed, whether it's a limb, a leg, a part of the body, part of the neck, wherever it is, you realize that it becomes difficult to use that area of the body very well. And so the person who is suffering from this problem begins to suffer from a loss of function in that area, and this has been seen in many circumstances. So we've run through the cardinal points of inflammation. We've also compared inflammation to the use of the Greek fire by the warriors who are trying to save their kingdom. We also round off by saying that inflammation is good. It's like fire, and it can help to protect the body. But chronic inflammation, that's sustained inflammation, uncontrolled inflammation, can become problematic and can lead to deadly consequences. Thank you for listening to this. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you learned one or two things. Remember to like, subscribe to our channel, and ask us questions, engage us, and it's always wonderful being here. Thank you.